Human history is abundant with examples of massively influential states who came to rule over vast realms and shape decades of local and global history. It is these few empires, kingdoms, and republics that we today recognize as great powers. Virtually every civilization has strived to expand beyond its borders at some point or another, though as you might expect, only a handful have actually succeeded. An even smaller fraction of those successful civilizations go yet another step further and risk it all for the chance of becoming a great power. Once again, not all succeed, many falling just short of the greatness that would immortalize them in our history books. In this video, we will identify some of the more obscure of these states who stood just inches away from becoming great powers themselves. Egypt. By the 19th century, the lands of Egypt were drastically different than what they were under the reign of the pharaohs. Ever since the 7th century, Egypt came under the rule of various Islamic dynasties. In the 1500s, it was incorporated into the Ottoman Empire, under which it would remain until the 1800s. The man credited with the founding of modern Egypt was an Ottoman governor known as Muhammad Ali. Originally appointed there to stabilize the region after Napoleon's failed campaign, this Ottoman officer of Albanian origin eventually came to rule over a vast region by reconquering the Hejaz, which had previously fallen to the Arabian House of Saud, and successfully expanding southward down the Nile into Sudan. Muhammad Ali would suffer a humiliating defeat at the hands of the European powers while helping the Ottoman Sultan suppress a Greek rebellion. The Albanian thus requested that he be granted control over Syria as compensation for his lost men and resources. The Ottomans declined, and so an outright war broke out. Muhammad Ali's campaigns were marked by huge success. Not only did he capture Syria, but also a portion of the Ottoman heartland of Anatolia. The European powers, some fearing that this would upset the newly established balance of power, and others hoping to tilt power in their favor by raising a new ally, intervened on both sides, forcing Muhammad to relinquish his control over the Hejaz and Syria. Had the Europeans not intervened, it's very likely that Muhammad would have toppled the Ottoman dynasty and replaced it with his own. Scandinavia. In 1396, a union was forged between the Scandinavian nations in order to curb the influence of the rival Hanseatic League in the northern states of the Holy Roman Empire. This Kalmar union was a personal union between Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, also encompassing Iceland and a significant chunk of Finland. The union was formed largely thanks to the Danish Queen Margaret, who married the son of the Norwegian-Swedish king. Their son Olaf inherited the throne of both Denmark and Sweden, however died early. Margaret, having outlived her son, became the regent of both Norway and Denmark, making her extremely influential. She later used that influence to help her adopted nephew Eric gain control over all three Scandinavian kingdoms. This union would last 120 years, however remained very unstable throughout its entire history, with Sweden seceding from the union on multiple occasions on account of its own rising power in comparison to the waning power of Denmark and Norway. In 1523, Sweden would permanently leave the union, bringing it to an end. Had this commonwealth survived into the era of colonialism, it is very likely that it would have become one of the major players in the European continent. The Franco-Byzantine Empire. In the late 8th century, the Eastern Roman Empire had for the first time in its history come under the control of a female ruler, Irene of Athens. The Pope, refusing to recognize a woman as the legitimate Roman emperor, instead crowned Frankish King Charlemagne, who had through a series of successful campaigns reunited a large portion of Western Europe into an apparent West Roman successor state. Seeing an opportunity to re-establish the former glory of the Roman Empire of antiquity, Charlemagne, now the Holy Roman Emperor, made a marriage proposal to the Byzantine Empress. Irene, aware of the huge influence such a union would grant her, began seriously considering the offer, only to be overthrown by Greek aristocrats who wouldn't settle with being ruled by a Germanic barbarian. Had this union actually taken place, it would have likely led to the emergence of a state on par with the Roman Empire of old. The Russo-Polish Union. The 1600s did not begin well for the young Russian Tsardom. For the first time in its history, the people of Russia were ruled by a Tsar who wasn't a descendant of the founder of the Kievan Rus, Rurik. Due to bad environmental conditions, the Russian people also suffered from poor harvests and famines. This made the new king Boris Godunov very unpopular. Rumors began to circulate that the younger brother of the previous Tsar was actually alive, and many Russians began claiming to be this King Dmitry. One of those false Dmitries managed to get the support of the king of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Sigismund III. Following the death of Tsar Boris Godunov and a successful invasion by the Polish-backed Dmitry, the pretender king was able to take the Russian throne, however was quickly overthrown, prompting the Poles to find yet another man claiming to be Dmitry to invade Russia with. The Poles were ultimately successful, however instead of putting Dmitry on the Russian throne, the Polish king made his son Vladislav Tsar instead. This would have made Vladislav monarch of both Russia and Poland upon his father's death. However, infighting and Swedish intervention in Russia led to the overthrow of Polish rule and its replacement with a native dynasty, the Romanovs. The United Arab Republic. Following the success of the Egyptians during the Suez Crisis in 1956, the president of Egypt, Abdul Nasser, and his pan-Arabist ideology gained a lot of popularity throughout the Arab world. This advocating for Arab unity seemed like the perfect opportunity for the ruling Syrian party, which was in fear of the rapidly growing communist sentiment within their country, to propose a union with the Egyptians. Thus, in 1958, the United Arab Republic was formed. This union, however, proved to be far from what Syria expected. Nasser dismantled all Syrian parties and created a government dominated by the Egyptians. This culminated in a military coup staged by a group of Syrian officers who declared Syria's independence from the Republic. Had Nasser allowed more Syrians into higher positions, it is likely that the United Republic would have continued to exist and even thrive as it annexed additional members in the coming years. The Bulgarian Empire thanks you for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more. Mr. Czar, out.